For hundreds of years, people have said, oh, the youth. Oh, my goodness. Believe it or not, in the late 1700s, they were talking about how novels are going to ruin our generation because they're wasting too much time reading books. And every generation, there's some layer of, oh, I don't know how that they're going to be able to do that. And so what I envision is empowerment and getting out of their way and letting young people create their own path, because that's what's happened. That is what has happened for generations.
Welcome to the DMF podcast, where you will find great conversations with interesting people who have been called to serve. We'll meet impactful charities, dive deep into pressing health topics, and learn from servant leaders who are working to see, be, and spread light. At the end of each episode, we hope you're inspired to realize that you have your own unlimited potential to change the world for the better. Join us as we work to create a region of the healthiest, most purpose-driven people on the planet. Welcome back to the DMF podcast. I'm your host, Whitney Isaacson. Thanks for joining me in another conversation as we highlight a charity that is doing important work in our community. I'm excited to talk today with someone who is passionate about creating a safe place for all youth to belong and to be heard. Because most complaints for teenagers today is that they're not being heard. Our guest today shares with us some great advice to develop a partnership with our youth and not a boss and employee relationship. So then we can be able to walk alongside our youth and help them reach their full potential as partners. I'm happy to introduce Mark Heinert, the Executive Director of Youthworks. Youthworks is working to not only solve basic physical needs for youth, but emotional needs as well. So whether you're looking to learn more about Youthworks today or just hoping for an uplifting message, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So let's get into it. All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. We are super excited to be sitting down today with Youthworks, an amazing charity in our community across our region doing such important work. So I can't wait to learn more about it. And so welcome, Mark, to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
Yes, well, we're going to dive into a lot. So I just want to get rolling into it. But first, I always like to ask my first question of just, why do you do what you do? You're the Executive Director of Youthworks. What are you most passionate about in your role?
Love the question. I love that you kick off your podcast that way too, by the way, Whitney. It's fun. It's a fun way to start the conversation, and it caused my brain to immediately go to, why do I do what it is that I'm doing? And immediately what I went to is just how much I enjoy spending time with people, how much I enjoy helping youth be able to reach their full potential, and the rewards that you can get by just getting out of the way sometimes and just seeing that. Even when I was younger, in my younger years in high school and college, I was coaching youth and I always had opportunities to work with young people. Now I've got some gray hair and I've found myself still waking up in the morning thinking that I'm young, because I get to spend a lot of time with people that are young, and you really just can feed off of that energy. And so I think it's empowering for us adults to see the strength that young people have, their resilience, their abilities, their talents. And I don't know how you can't get energy from being able to be so close to that energy.
Wow, such a good answer. You are already opening the doors for so much that I want to talk about with you. And so I love how you're passionate about helping youth reach their full potential. And so I want to dive right into, so what is Youthworks and what is the need for Youthworks?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, probably before I even say that about Youthworks, I just think a real key about what Youthworks is, outside of services and programs, is its relationships. And if you hear me thinking about what joy I get from being a part of Youthworks, it's not, we have this program and we provide such and such services. It's the people. And we have fantastic people that are a part of our team that are working with youth, that are supporting youth. And the difference really is that for us, our belief is that young people are assets that are just needing some help in being developed. They're not problems that need to be solved. And so many other places you might hear about, well, we have this issue or this problem, and we need to solve this issue or solve this problem. So what YouthWorks does is builds on those strengths. And we build on those strengths with the relationships that we're able to form with young people, and we empower young people to take control of their lives. Now, they might be coming to us because of a specific challenge or need. So that would get into kind of the service level of like, well, someone hears YouthWorks, don't they provide services for homeless youth? I probably could benefit from getting that because I don't have a place to stay and I need that. So they might be coming to us for that reason, but the levels of service and support that they get, it's not just providing a safe place. And the safe place is also an emotional safe place. It's well beyond a bed. It's well beyond food. It's well beyond clothing. It's someone who cares. And you can't teach that. You can't coach that. You need to be in it for the right reasons. And we're lucky to have staff that are a part of that. So I just had to preface, like, we do have lots of services. We have lots of programs, and I can certainly touch on many of those, but our mission really zeroes in on the fact that we believe every youth deserves to have a safe place to belong and a safe place to be heard. So those things really kind of tie together, because it's like, what I'm saying is, yeah, they need to have a safe place. So it is sometimes about a pillow and a bed. And there's other times when I'm walking in and I feel intimidated and scared. And what is this person doing to help me feel safe and comfortable? Are they accepting me for who I am? Are they supporting me by providing me with some food? Are they listening to what it is that I have to say? Or are they too busy trying to lecture about what it is that they think that I should be doing? And so we really emphasize listening. And when you said, it's a podcast and you'll be doing most of the talking, it's like, I would like to listen more. And that's part of our key, is how do we become supportive? How do we help empower and get out of the way for young people? The populations that we provide services for really are many different varieties, but the age group that we work with is 12 to 24. And so, yes, we have extended youth to the age of 24. Science says that our brains aren't fully developed, and we've got some of our partners that are also seeing that those transitional years, college age years, et cetera, are also really important to consider the needs that that population has. And we do provide services for youth or young adults that are in a situation where they don't have a place to stay. So they might be homeless, they might be pushed out or kicked out from their home, they might have run away from home. Those circumstances, situations don't matter. It's that they're in need of some assistance with that. So there might be times when we're working to reunify youth with their families of origin, and there might be other times where we're helping them with housing and emergency shelter or supports to meet their basic needs. So we have emergency shelter for youth that are under 18. We have transitional housing for youth that are young adults that are in that 18 to 24-year-old range. We also serve victims of various crimes. We have a specialty service that zeroes in on human trafficking and trying to make sure that we're able to identify victims of human trafficking and that we can provide them with the services and the supports to make it. And that includes that same level of shelter. It includes transitional housing, connection to services. It's really a fun thing. I said in the outset, how it's empowering to be a part of young people's lives when they're at that stage. And I often am thinking about, when I was 18, did I know this? When I was 20, what was my sense of who I was? And it's just fully exhilarating to be a part of someone going, I could do what I want to do. And so that's mostly what we get to do, is we get to say, well, what is it that you want in your life? What is it that might be bringing you down? What can we do? What can you do? What can the community do to help support you with whatever that challenge might be that's coming their way? And it could start as simple as basic needs. and not having a roof over your head. And it could end up in a much more complex, I don't feel like I'm welcomed by my family, or the society is not accepting who I am because of what I look like. And those opportunities are what really kind of kicks that into the next level for us. It's once we get past those basic needs, and those are important though, because if we're busy trying to solve emotional needs, and it's like, I'm hungry, like I don't care like what you can do to provide counseling, like I'm hungry and I need to sleep. And so we take care of those basic needs first before we jump into some of the other levels of service that we have. And then I've gone on a little bit, but I'm going to keep on going just a little more on some of those. Okay, so we have a lot of complementary services then that supports that. Prevention, early intervention, we do support groups. We have opportunities to look at not always having to be a reactionary service. So if you hear me talking about trafficking, or you hear me making reference to a runaway or someone that's homeless that doesn't have a place to live, if they're unaccompanied, then it's easier to identify that. But we'd really like to be able to do some prevention services, and so we do that as well. So perhaps there's challenge, there's conflict within the family, or there's someone who's saying, I'm facing eviction, I'm 22 and I don't know where I'm going to go. We're also doing our best to provide some levels of support to help them in their current situation instead of just waiting for that to happen. Now, as a nonprofit, we've got all sorts of layers of different fundings, including grants from the federal government, state. We receive donations. We're a proud member of the Dakota Medical Foundation's Giving Hearts campaign. And so we're doing a lot of different things to make that work. So sometimes we have different expectations. There's certain eligibility, such as age or homeless determination, or whether they've been a victim of a crime. Those are some things, yes, that ends up being a factor. But the message I'd really like to get across more so than that is that we are interested in helping young people to thrive, and we are engaging with them, and we are helping them to reach the goals that they have for themselves in life.
Yes, it's great to hear just the amount of services you guys have, because you're truly touching kids in any situation that they might be going through. You're touching their lives through any crisis or any need that they might be having. And so it makes me think about, what is that process like for a child? How do they find you? Do they get referred to you? And what's the process like when they walk through your doors?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, the youth that we serve come to us in a real big variety of ways. Sometimes it is youth that heard from their friend, and they're like, oh, I didn't know there was such a place that might be able to help me. And so their friend brings them to us or tells them about us, and then they reach out and contact us, whether that be email, social media, in person, phone line. We do have 24/7 crisis services available too. So it could even be that someone's calling us in crisis saying, like, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, I need some help. And we're there to help them in that process. So it could be that. It could be like, I'm in a crisis and I need some assistance. They might walk in our front door, which is appropriate and welcome for them to do that. Call us. But we also get a good amount of referrals from our partners. So as I've described those services, you kind of get an idea like, okay, so if we're working with youth that are teens, we're working pretty closely with schools, for example. And so we have other levels of partnership. The Fargo and West Fargo Public School Districts, for example, have a partnership for us where if they're looking at a youth that's struggling and maybe not able to stay in school, whether that be an official out-of-school suspension or not, that instead of having them be suspended out of school and sit at home and play Xbox or play games on their video games or on their phone, or just be upset, they come to us. And so we have an opportunity to just visit with them and figure out what's actually going on behind the scenes. Instead of it being about what they've done, it's like, what's happening? What has happened to you versus what did you do? And what can we do to help you feel better about yourself? Almost always, there is a situation where someone in one way, shape, or form, and we all can experience this personally, like we've all felt like something's happened to us where it's like, I didn't ask for this to happen to me. And so we listen and we take the time to identify what's going on and then try to help them game plan that. We want to walk beside the youth. We don't want to be telling them what to do. So it's different than if you're going into a doctor and you say, hey, my elbow hurts. Can you fix this? And they're going to prescribe something or they're going to tell you what it is you have to do. The difference for us is that we're really going to want to walk alongside, and we want that youth to be the big part of planning what they're going to do, how they're going to potentially make changes in their lives, address challenges, and make things happen. And so it could be a school counselor who's telling a youth about us. It could be the law enforcement that had a report of a runaway from their home, and they get involved with them and they bring them to our emergency shelter. And it, for the youth, it might not feel like, oh, I don't know if this is great, but the first thing that happens is when they come to us, we want to make sure they want to stay. And so a youth that comes to us needs to be voluntarily interested in participating and getting that help. And that honestly happens. It's not hard for us to gain that permission from young people, but there are young people that might be coming to us in a situation where they're not really feeling like it was their thought or their idea. So those two examples that stand out the most, I got suspended from the school and the school is telling me I can't be there. I've got picked up by the police for one reason or the other, and the police are bringing me to Youthworks. Doesn't necessarily sound like it's like, oh yes, I heard about Youthworks. I want to benefit from their support and their services. But you'd be amazed how many young people, after they've spent time with our staff and they've been a part of working on what they want to do for themselves, are saying, it doesn't matter why or how I ended up getting here. Like, this is a place where people care. And I'm heard.
Did you know that medical expenses are the #1 cause of bankruptcy? If you want to help an individual or family experiencing a health crisis, loss of life, or other trauma, head to lendahandup.org to support a neighbor in need today. If you want to learn more about the silent epidemic of digital addiction, learn to spot the warning signs of child sexual abuse, or are interested in starting a charitable fund for a cause you're passionate about, head to dacmed.org today.
Yes, and it truly is the importance of having a trusted adult and mentor figure in your life. Because for these children, people might write them off of like, oh, they're too hard to break through to, let's just not even try. But to have a place where they can feel safe and heard and they have trusted adults, it's interesting that you said it doesn't take long to build that trust with them, because I would think that maybe their engagement would be tough because maybe they don't want to engage with you guys. But it sounds like the importance of having that trusted adult, they see that and they're craving that.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a science to that, but there's also human relationships that we know that it will make a difference if we're not, for example, if we're not jumping in right away with, let's say that a young person was caught shoplifting. The youth was shoplifting and parents were frustrated with them. Law enforcement got involved and it's like, boy, this is an issue. We might need some help. The biggest difference is we're not focusing on why did you shoplift? What's wrong with you? What do we need to do to get you to stop shoplifting? Instead, it's really much more broad. It's like, what's going on in your life? What's happening? Can you help us understand? And when young people have an opportunity to explain what's going on in their life, I mean, sometimes they'll just say straight up, yeah, I was stupid. I wasn't thinking. It was an impulse. It's like, okay. But do you gain more insight by having open-ended questions? Because perhaps you realize that they don't have a lot of financial means and they were stealing some food because they weren't sure how they were going to get their next meal. And by you coming at it in a real authoritative fashion, you have prevented that from happening. You ask that question like, why did you do that? Don't you know that store owner needs to make a living and blah, 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 that many times we've heard and seen people do. That's part of the difference. It's not necessarily which words are asked, but it's also about how that's asked. Are we calm? Are we accepting? And we do have a benefit that is unique, which is we're not wearing the badge, we're not the superintendent or principal, we are not the parent who's got potentially 15, 16, 18 years worth of frustration with some behaviors that have been going on. We have an opportunity to start fresh and to just ask some basic questions and then help identify how we can be a part of supporting that. And probably a really good practical example of that is it's not uncommon for young people to say, well, I just want to be able to do what I want. Like, I keep on being restricted. And it doesn't matter whether that's the community settings, parents, schools that are saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And sometimes just reframing that and helping the youth see that, oh, I get it. I'll give you a real simple example. I really want to play basketball. I want to play basketball on the team, but there are certain expectations within the school in order for us to play basketball. And so the school or the parents are frustrated because the youth is either skipping classes or is not engaged in school in that process. And part of it is helping to identify, like, what's that motivator? Like, why are we doing what we're doing? And maybe we're able to help identify that, okay, you're interested in basketball. What do you got to do to be eligible for the team? Instead of, you're not going to get to play unless you do this. It's the reframing of how those conversations are had with youth that gives them the opportunity to take ownership in their lives and say, well, okay, is it Mark that wants them to go play basketball, or do they want to play basketball? Well, they want to play basketball, and Mark's just asking, what does it take? What are the rules? What are the expectations? And then the youth gets a chance to think about it from that perspective. Well, I need to be passing X number of grades, or I can't miss this many days of school. And if they don't know about it, that might be part of a fact finding. Well, maybe we can help figure this out together. We can get a hold of the student handbook, or we can call the school and get those facts. But it's not like a authoritative approach. It's a walk alongside. You have a goal. How do we help you with that goal? And sometimes it can be, this is probably oversimplified, but sometimes it's even as simple as, I hate dealing with authority. Oh, you don't like the police, or you don't want to be put on probation, or go to the principal's office. What do we need to do to change? What do we need to do to have that happen less often? And that might be some of the behaviors that are causing these challenges. But it's not me saying you need to stop mouthing off in class, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. A saying that I have shared with our staff often is that we have to be careful not to should on people. Because if you find yourself saying, you know what you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, then that's not youth empowerment. It's not giving young people an opportunity to take ownership of their lives. And honestly, that's not a youth only. I think all of us adults don't react real kindly when someone jumps in and starts telling you what it is that you should be doing with your life, especially if it's about, like, what am I doing with my life? And for young people, that happens a lot because they're in this formative age. We're focusing on working with teens and young adults. And so we definitely believe in much more empowerment. So I don't want that to be mistaken for, a 3-year-old that absolutely needs to be told not to run out into the street. That's a totally different scenario and situation. And so we have the benefit of working with a specific population that is transitioning into greater levels of independence. And part of our work really is teaching life skills, supporting them with what they want to accomplish, and empowering them to take control of their own lives.
Yes, and I truly love it because I love how you mentioned that you're listening more than you're lecturing, because that's helping right there empower the kids to build those positive strength, resilience qualities so that they can go and be a positive part of our community and be successful in life. That's truly what it's all about. So I love that you're so hands-on working with young adults in such a dire time in their lives. So I am curious how you talk a lot about walking alongside them. So what does that look like for, a unique situation, maybe with your homeless services or the victim services? What does it actually look like to walk alongside them? And then maybe for the families as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. A good example might be when someone doesn't have, let's say it's someone who doesn't have a place to stay, and they're trying to figure out what their options are. It oftentimes means we are helping them by getting into our agency vehicle and driving over to another partner organization to see if we can't get them some support and some services. And we're not just saying, here's a card, call this person. Or if we're calling, we're doing our best to make sure that we're doing that with them and we're supporting them while they make that call, or we're talking and supporting them in that process. It also means that sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had to ask for any type of a mainstream resource assistance. So whether that be any type of government assistance, housing assistance, SNAP, which would be the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps, or any other type of assistance like that. But my goodness, that's a lot. And we have college graduates with a 4-year degree that oftentimes start with us going, holy cow, that's a lot to figure out how to get all this paperwork filled out. So it's that too sometimes. And it's not doing, here's a real key. It's not doing it for them, because that's another mistake that happens, is you do not want to do it for them, but you don't want to just hand it to the young people and say, here you go. And then later say, I don't know why they didn't turn that application in, I gave them it. And yet, what were the potential barriers that existed that might have prevented them from being able to do that? You have access to, is it an online application? Do they have access? Do they have a phone with an internet connection? Do they have service? Those are some of the things that we're going to be discussing and figuring out so that we can get real down to the brass tacks, which is what are the reasons that might be keeping someone from doing that. In fact, our founder, a good friend of mine, Doug Herzog, who established Youthworks 39 years ago. We're approaching our 40th anniversary coming up, so we're excited about that in 2026. But Doug always said that we're in the excuse reduction business. And I like that because it's also looking at like, well, what are those? Because an excuse might be a very legitimate excuse, or it could be a mental barrier that's preventing you from doing something. Like, I don't want to go work out, so I'm going to come up with an excuse so that I don't have to do that right now. Like, I feel like laying in bed another hour. So his point was really good, which is, oh, okay, so you don't have access to a phone. Let's get you access to a phone. You don't have transportation. Maybe we can get you a bus pass. You're not comfortable walking in and asking someone for assistance. We'll go with you. Those are the things that we do to help reduce those barriers. And it's of particular importance for youth in that teen and young adult stage of life. This is a different approach, though, if it's a 5-year-old, and it's a different approach if it's a 55-year-old. It is a unique stage in life where people need to learn to gain confidence in their abilities to do those things. And it's so fun to watch someone come to us, sometimes sadly with not even just barely the clothes on their back, and move out 12 months later into an apartment that's all their own, that's furnished, and that they're confident and comfortable having those conversations with others. And so it's really like, okay, so how do we get you to this place that you see for yourself? And how do we make this feel more realistic and attainable? Because sometimes it's like, well, I'd love to do this, but I don't think that'll ever happen. Okay, so each of the youth that we work with, they're a part of helping establish their own personalized goals. Like, it's their own individual plan to say, here's what I want. It might be, I want a place to live, I want to find a job, I want to finish high school. If those are their goals, then all of our work is going to be affiliated with supporting that. Like, what do we do to support you getting done with school? Do you need transportation? Do you need, like, what are the things that are associated with that? And then breaking it down so that it's attainable and it's not this big, like, how will I ever finish school?
Yes, 100%. And it's lovely to hear how you guys truly are walking alongside these youth. through building so many skills and empowering them to take control of their lives. And I have some burning questions I want to make sure we have time for. And one of them is, what is an impact story that you have that reminds you why you do what you do?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. The one that comes to my mind is it's about empowerment. It's about believing in youth and their ability to make a change, not just for themselves. And several years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, we put together, we were a part of a group, so it wasn't just Youthworks, but it was a group of other providers across the state. We were looking at trying to address what are some of the barriers for youth that are homeless. And there is a young, I'll say young woman, I think she might have still just barely been over 18, who had a child prior to turning 18. And she was talking about how difficult it was to obtain medical care for her own child, even though she was the mother of the child. And she might not have had the level of support from her family. So she gave us feedback, and she participated in these conversations all the way to the point where it went to the legislature to say we need to help unaccompanied youth be able to access medical care, and made a difference for many, many, many youth way after her. Fun side note on that, just a couple of weeks ago when we were doing our We've Got You Covered event, she was there to volunteer to help give out some of the clothing. And so it's the opportunity to see somebody who might have came to us with a need, who was a homeless young parent, who saw the greater picture, said, here's how it affected me. Here's what I think could or should or would be done differently. And that sometimes is also within our own, we're absolutely not perfect. It's like, why do you guys have this rule in your program? And so we want to accept that feedback, and we want to accept the support so that it's really youth-led and youth-run. And so to me, I think that's a real good example of someone who might have came to us for services that left us saying, like, I felt empowered myself because this is greater than me and I can give back. And what a true benefit it is to be able to see that. And we've had a chance to see that both in terms of our youth action boards, but also we hire young people that have lived experience, and they've been able to then become a mentor, provide services, and give back in many ways to other people that might experience things similarly.
Yeah, well, that is a great story. And I love the story of empowerment, because teaching young adults to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and to, maybe you receive these services and now give back. And it touched so many other young adults' lives. The work that she did, you guys did, how you walked alongside her. That is truly a great story.
Well, what's good about it, I got to say, Whitney, is we didn't have to teach it. We didn't teach it. It was organic. And that youth wanted that. And I have been a part of working with many different youth groups who have said they want to help someone else who has a greater need. It's amazing what that level of community service and offering support to others, it really helps put things into a different perspective. But it's from within. It's not us having to teach that. It is something that all of us possess, and sometimes we just need to be given permission.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I love that. So for parents, and thinking about the parent's perspective, what advice would you have for parents who may have a young adult still living with them, maybe just out of the house? They might be going through some troubles with their child. What advice would you have for a parent who has young adults and how they're trying to empower them, build those positive skills? What advice would you give?
This isn't going to surprise you. Try listening. Try listening first. What is it that that their child or their youth is frustrated about? What is really going on? Most of the complaints that we get from teenagers, young adults that are coming to us, is that they're not being heard. Almost always. It's like, I feel like I'm not being heard. And parents will say, yeah, but I'm not being heard. So, and that's fair. That's a very fair point, which is, well, I'm still in charge of you and you're not 18 and you need to do what I say you need to do. And so my advice to parents is that develop a partnership, not a boss-employee relationship. Develop a partnership so that you can also walk alongside your teen and help them get that level of independence. Because what ends up happening for all of us is that we don't just wake up at 18 and go, yay, I'm an adult, I get to do this stuff on my own, I finally get to make decisions. You get gradual amounts of freedom and independence that is given to you. And so figuring out a way as a parent how you can incentivize that freedom and independence, create structure that's associated with that so that there's motivation to say, I want this freedom, I want this independence, so I'm going to obey this curfew because this curfew is going to give me more freedom and independence because you're going to let me go out next Friday. And if I don't follow this curfew, then I know I'm not going to get that. And so sticking with if this, then that matters. The behavioral consequences matters, but it also matters from the perspective of it not being emotional and it being factual. Like this is what our facts are. And you would be surprised how well youth are at figuring out what those rules should be, what those consequences should be, versus it being told to them. But if they own it, it's so much easier. It's so much easier as a parent even to say, what did you say again was going to be the consequence for this? And then they have to say, well, it was going to be grounded, or you're going to take away my phone. It's like, okay, but that was what we agreed, right? Yes. And they're still mad and they're still upset, but it's different than that's not, because we'll hear youth oftentimes saying that's not fair. And it's because they didn't feel like they had a part in that process of making those decisions about what should or shouldn't happen. It doesn't mean necessarily you just open up, and you allow all sorts of what sounds like ridiculous things. It is a conversation, and it's a reasonable conversation that you're going to have with your teen.
Yeah, well, that is so good. Thank you, Mert. Great advice. So as we're wrapping up here, I have a couple more questions. And one of them being, what is your hope for the next generation? What is your hope for the next generation of youth that you are working with hands-on, day in and day out, building up those positive traits, empowering them? So what is your hope for the next generation?
This generation, here's what's interesting, historically speaking. I'm a history buff, so my apologies if you're not interested in history. For hundreds of years, people have said, oh, the youth, oh my goodness. Believe it or not, in the late 1700s, they were talking about how novels are going to ruin our generation because they're wasting too much time reading books. And every generation, there's some layer of, I don't know how that they're going to be able to do that. And so what I envision is empowerment and getting out of their way and letting young people create their own path, because that's what's happened. That is what has happened for generations. And it'll continue to happen as long as we empower youth, as long as we look at their strengths and not put them down and label them in a negative way.
Right. Yes, so good. I love it. So as we're wrapping up, I just want to always let you share with anyone listening how they can get involved and how can they support you in Youthworks.
Yeah, great question. We have all sorts of opportunities for volunteering. In fact, just last week with that clothing giveaway that I told you we had 100 people volunteering to give clothing out, and we had nearly 800 people in person get clothing for up to 1,200 people. And so we've got events like that happen. And we also have opportunities for financial support. We're a private nonprofit. We're trying our best to make things work. And we believe in supporting the youth fully. And so what I mean by that is we actually also need funds because we want to pay youth to be those mentors and to be those advisors. I know businesses that will pay mucho bucks to pay an expert to give them advice about how to do things. Well, we have youth that are experts and we want to be able to support them. And so the financial support is really important, but there's something that goes beyond all of this. So yes, we really do need that, by the way. We definitely need financial support, and we need people that are interested in volunteering or working for us. We're always looking for people to help us out to work in our shelter, or if they want to volunteer in the shelter, that's also fine. But more importantly is what we can do as a community. what are we doing across North Dakota and West Central Minnesota to tell youth that they hold value, to tell youth that they are important? So we hire them, we give them jobs, we encourage them, we give them second chances. And when they walk into our business, when they walk into our school, when they walk into our community, we accept them for who they are. And it is one of the most significant levels of feedback that's been positive that I've received over my 29 years of being at Youthworks, is you accepted me for who I am, and you didn't try to make me be something that I wasn't. And so whether that be about who they are, what they look like, what their culture is, what their religion is, their gender, their sexual orientation, none of all of that is really about, we are accepting you for who you are, and we're here to empower you to be what you want to be.
Wow. What a good conversation we've had today. And thank you, Mark, for just everything that you do to build up the next generation, to give them a space where they're heard, they're valued, they belong. And truly, that is what young people and even older adults are craving. So to have an organization that exists, I love it. Thank you for just giving us such insight to your day-to-day and what it looks like to walk alongside these youth. And I feel like we could have talked so much more and so much longer. Maybe we'll have to have some more conversations, even just on your guys' programs and just all the day-to-day stuff. So, but thank you so much for sitting down here today and spending time to share with us more about Youthworks.
Yes, love being able to get more information out about who we are. And yeah, would love to do a follow-up. We can have some young people come and be a part of the conversation.
Yes, that'd be so fun. Well, thank you again, Mark. And yes, we are just cheering you on from afar. So we can't wait to see what you guys are up to, what you guys do next. So thanks again.
Thanks, Whitney.
What a great conversation with Mark today. Someone who truly cares about empowering the next generation. Mark had some great advice on how to listen more than lecture, so that we can walk alongside our youth and not just tell them what to do, but teach them how to address challenges, start planning, and set goals for themselves to thrive. I also loved how Mark shared that at Youthworks, they're asking more of what has happened to you versus what did you do? And then also, what can we do to help you feel better about yourself and then better understand what's going on in your life? This conversation today really helped me better understand Youthworks, but also how it is so important to be more supportive with our youth, empower them with positive strengths, and then get out of the way for them to take control of their own lives. Don't forget that you can check out more at youthworksnd.org. All right, folks, that's going to be a wrap for today. Thank you so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next time on the DMF podcast. And remember, we are called to serve.